So who exactly are Ashkenazi Jews? What's our connection to ancient Israel as Jewish people? What's our genetic identity? This is a discussion that comes up a lot. A lot of Hebrew Israelites refer to us as fake Jews and things like that. So I want to take some time to unpack this, but I want to interact in particular with one video that was posted on the YouTube channel of Dante Fortson. Mr. Fortson, if you're watching this, I think you'll see I'm going to interact in a respectful way as watching your video. It seems that you're seeking to interact in the same way as seekers of truth. And both of us do not believe in a race-based salvation, so we affirm those things clearly. But the question of identity is very important. Has a black history been hijacked by whites or things being misrepresented? These things should be looked at. Now what's interesting is that there are folks who watch my debate with Sakari leader, a guerrilla Hebrew. And, of course, many in his camp that he did wonderfully. That I knew was going to happen before we started. No matter what I said, they would say he did a great job. But there are many others who said, why'd you pick that guy? He can't debate. He didn't know what he was talking about. Why don't you debate Ron Dalton? Why don't you debate Dante Fortson? So that's where I began to see these names come up. Now I'm not here challenging everyone, I want to debate you. And it's not like some macho kind of thing. This is in the interest of seeking truth. I left the door open that if anyone contacted me, who is a recognized leader in the Hebrew Israelite camp, and we could agree on a subject matter and format, that I'd be happy to do a debate. So that hand of invitation is open. Should any of these gentlemen, Ron Dalton, Dante Fortson, want to have a public or private dialogue debate, we can agree on subject and format, I'd be very happy to, for the sake of truth and for the honor of the Lord. I want to say this, though, up front. The first book of Dante's I just bought was this one. I hope to get some more. Undeniable, Full-Color Evidence of Black Israelites in the Bible. And towards the front of the book, page 5, Dante says this: the claim that there is no evidence of a black Israel are always made by people that haven't bothered to look for any of the evidence. They'll often repeat what they've been told to believe, but the truth is that there's lots of evidence, both biblically and historically, that back up why many of us believe Israel was and still is black. So here's where I want to take exception to what you said. I have looked at the evidence carefully. For sure, the original Israelites weren't white. We understand that. And Jesus himself wasn't white. He wasn't a white European. And I've written and talked about the European Christian hijacking of Jesus, where the Jews are like these demon figures and Jesus is this handsome white European and things like that. So by all means, let's look at the original identity of the people of Israel. But I'm quite sure historically that they weren't black either, and that there's nothing in the Bible that says as a people they were black. And this is having studied it, looked at it. I have other colleagues who work closely with African-American churches who look in the scriptures for an African presence, and they also do not believe that Israel was originally black or Jesus was black or the apostles were black. So that's where I take exception. Don't say that the claims are being made by people who haven't looked for themselves. I've looked carefully. And here, let's just talk candidly for a minute about blind spots, all right? When I was in college, I had a Christian friend, black Christian friend, who went to pretty much an all-black church in Brooklyn. And we would hang out together. We were people of like heart. So he invited me to a church service there. And to my surprise, there was a mural on the wall, and it was Jesus and the apostles, and they were all black. I remember saying to him, why'd you have, that's not accurate. And he said, well, it's just a point of identification. And, you look at a high school yearbook, the first thing you look for is your picture. So we want people to be able to identify. Here's my blind spot. If they had all been white, it wouldn't have fazed me. That would have been wrong also. Right, but that wouldn't have fazed me because I grew up, didn't even think twice about it. So, Dante, if that's okay to call you by your first name, I'm all in for the search for real identity and for accuracy in presentation. And I fully recognize that a lot of things get whitewashed over the centuries, and that Jesus has been made into this lovely European guy, etc. So I share that with you. And I understand if you feel that something's been stolen or a heritage has been stolen, that you want to take it back. Above all, though, I want to emphasize this. My identity is being in Jesus, in Yeshua, a child of God, forgiven, washed with the blood. It's my life experience that I'm raised Jewish, grew up in a Jewish home, was bar mitzvahed, that my dad grew up Jewish, that his dad grew up Jewish, that his dad before that grew up Jewish as far back as we can trace it, and some of them very religious going back. So that's just my life experience, but who I am, what makes me tick, the core of my being is that I'm a child of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And I welcome all others who are children of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And it could well be that there are as many as a couple 100,000 black Jews in America today. That could well be. But we're going to unpack this. We're going to look at this together. We're going to take some time. So sit back, enjoy this, stop and start the video as you need to, check references. And again, the desire is to glorify the Lord and pursue the truth. Okay, so let's just take a moment and start with Scripture. I want to read to you from Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10, this is the table of the nations that we have after the flood, beginning in verse 1, Ve'elu toldot b'nei Noach, Shem, Ham, v'Yafet, v'Yivaldu lahem banim achar hamabul. So these are the lines of Shem, Ham, and Yafet, the sons of Noach. Sons were born to them after the flood. Then it says, B'nei Yafet were who? They're listed. Gomer, Umagog, Umadai, V'Yavan, V'Tuval, Meshech, V'Tiras. And the descendants of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tuval, Meshech, and Tiras. And then Uvenei Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifat, V'Togarma. And the descendants of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifat, and Togarma. So Ashkenaz is listed here as what? A descendant of not Shem, not the Semites, but Yafet. All right? Now, the question is, who's Ashkenaz? Does Ashkenaz in the Bible have anything to do with Ashkenazi Jews? Okay? So now that's like another reference to the same Ashkenaz, Jeremiah chapter 51, beginning in verse 27, starting with the Hebrew word Se'u nes ba'aretz, tikush shofar ba'goyim. So raise a standard on the earth, sound a horn among the nations, appoint nations against her. This is the fall of Babylon. Assemble kingdoms against her, Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. So this is a totally different group of people now, right? This nation, this people called Ashkenaz, nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Jewish people. Well, who are they? If you will look at virtually every major Bible dictionary, Bible encyclopedia, here's what you'll find. I'm going to read to you, for example, from the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary, one of the most respected Bible dictionaries, multi-volume. Who is Ashkenaz? Here's what you see. The first descendant of Gomer, who is the first offspring of Yafet in the table of nations. In Jeremiah 51:27, Ashkenaz appears along with Ararat and Mini as a kingdom called upon to oppose Babylon. The name is identified with the Neo-Assyrian Ishkuza, who appeared between the Black and Caspian Sea in the 8th and 7th centuries BC, driving out the Cimmerians. And it goes on. Who are they then? For Herodotus, so a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society, they disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago. Here's another Bible dictionary, Erdman's Bible Dictionary, Ashkenaz, the eldest of the three sons of Gomer, the son of Yafet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom, and then also referencing Assyrian, so Akkadian, Ishkuza. The connection to the Cimmerian invasions accounts for its relation to Gomer. Aligned themselves with the Mani, the Scythians revolted against Assyria in the 7th century BC, but were afterwards conquered by the Medes and the Persians in 538. They provided contingents of troops for the Persian attack against Babylon. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with the Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany. They looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Yafet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name, Brown, doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works, you'll find the exact same thing. Okay, so let me share with you, in my debate with Guerrilla Hebrew, what I presented there in terms of DNA and Ashkenazi Jews. When I was explaining after the fictional made-up 12 tribes chart and why it's bogus, and you could spend hours and hours demolishing it, there's not a scintilla of truth in it. But it was now time to briefly explain why Ashkenazi Jews are, in fact, legitimately Jews, part of the larger people of Israel, right? Along with black Jews, along with Sephardic Jews, along with Mizrahi Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, and yeah, all part of the same people. When people say, well, Brown, when did this ever happen to Ashkenazi Jews? This part of the people of Israel. My history goes back to Egypt. If you're a black Jew, legitimately an Israelite, your history goes back to Egypt when we were in exile. Our history goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay? And then, as we're scattered around the world, as we'll see in a moment, intermarriage and other things, skin colors change, complexions change, other things change. We'll explain that, and DNA confirms all that. So here's what I wrote. First proof, DNA confirms the authenticity of Ashkenazi Jews. As for the most comprehensive, recent DNA study of Ashkenazi Jews, spearheaded by geneticists from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem and Harvard Medical School, and published November 30th, 2022, it confirms that we can trace our lineage back to first-century Jewish communities in Italy, which would include those sold as slaves into Rome, as well as earlier Jewish communities there, which Acts mentions. So I can trace my lineage back to the first century, and from there back to ancient Israel, as an Ashkenazi Jew, as a Jewish person with a mixture of European descent along the line. Here is the actual study as posted on the Cell website. Again, highly regarded academic study. Genome-wide data from medieval German Jews show that the Ashkenazi founder event predated the 14th century, and then it goes back and unpacks this further, tracing our lineage through the fathers back to the Middle East, back to ancient Israel. I continue. This is all what I presented briefly in the debate with Guerrilla Hebrew. Subsequently, as Italians converted and married into Judaism, our European skin color became part of our heritage. Then, as these Jews made their way into other parts of Europe and settled there, the same process continued, explaining our Caucasian complexion. But the same process occurred with African Jews, or Hispanic Jews, or Asian Jews, all of whom reflect other people marrying into the people of Israel, hence the many different colors and ethnicities of Jews worldwide, in contrast with the original brown-skinned Israelites. For the record, even if you argue that the original Israelites were black, there had to be conversion and intermarriage to explain the other ethnic and racial groups in the chart. So even someone arguing for the bogus 12-tribe chart would have to say, yeah, through intermarriage, complexions, and ethnicities can change. And I wrote this, but not only does DNA in general give us a clear link back to ancient Israel, the fact is, as I mentioned before, Ashkenazi Jews who are of priestly descent share the same priestly gene as do the Lemba Jews in Africa and Sephardi Jews worldwide. How could this be unless our Kohanim our priests actually descended from a common priestly ancestor? If Ashkenazi Jews have no genetic connection to Israel, then where did we acquire this gene? And then I quote from some other geneticists. Note also that geneticists have pointed out that the Y chromosome, meaning the paternal chromosome through the father of most Ashkenazi and Sephardi Jews, contains mutations that are common among Middle Eastern peoples, but uncommon in the general European population. Actually, quoting geneticists here, this suggests that the paternal lineages of Ashkenazi Jews could be traced mostly to the Middle East. These geneticists add that, quote, diaspora Jews from Europe, Northwest Africa, and the Near East resemble each other more closely than they resemble their non-Jewish neighbors. Put another way, Ashkenazi Jews originated in the Middle East. You can't simply get out of this all by saying, well, you can't trust DNA that far back. Friends, there's too much science behind it. I saw a post on our YouTube channel the other day, someone saying you can't trust DNA, just trust the King James Bible. Well, you can trust the King James Bible, but that does not discount the reality of DNA. So let's do this. Let's listen to what Mr. Fortson presents. I'm going to break it down and then dig into some of the sources that he cites and go a little deeper together. Let's start now with this video. This is obviously part of another teaching, but it's posted as a video on his YouTube channel about history, science, genetics, and Ashkenazi Jews. All right, let's listen.
So now Kessler calls them out as European. I don't believe Kessler was the first person to call them out. In fact, I know he wasn't. Dr. Claudius L. Buchanan, which I'm not going to touch on today, he calls the black Jews the ancient Jews and refers to the white Jews as the Jerusalem Jews, and says they came along later. And I've gone over that before. I think I went over that in the last one, which is why I'm not bringing it out this time. All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and I'm going to close down the Kessler thing. And it's important to understand that it's not us saying it. And the reason I bring up Kessler, let me see if we can find some. I want to read it directly from here. All right, so it says 13 Tribe, 1976 book by Arthur Kessler, in which the author advances the thesis that Ashkenazi Jews are not descended from the historical Israelites of antiquity, but from the Khazars, a Turkic people. Kessler hypothesized that the Khazars, who may be converted to Judaism, may have converted to Judaism in the 8th century, migrated westward into Eastern Europe in the 12th and 13th century when the Khazar Empire was collapsing. So that's what we just read directly from his book.
All right. Now, what's going to happen is that Mr. Fortson is going to bring in other evidence of DNA studies about European origins or matrilineal, so through the mother, origins that are European for X numbers of Ashkenazi Jews, etc. That has nothing to do with Kessler. Kessler wrote a book as a Jew, hoping that if he could show that Ashkenazi Jews who had suffered so much, who had been persecuted so much as Jews, that, well, actually they were converts to Judaism, that it would lessen anti-Semitism. Instead, it increased anti-Semitism. Now there's charge you're fake Jews, etc. Kessler's work has been completely marginalized. It was not a solid academic work. In fact, Mr. Fortson quoted from an article on Wikipedia referencing Kessler's work. And if you'll scroll down in that article to where it says assessment, and I'm not going to take the time to read through all of this, you will see academic scholars completely rejecting the material, calling it an eccentric work, saying that Kessler was unequipped with the specialist background the subject might be thought to require, and on and on. His work has virtually zero influence in the academic world today because it's outlying, because it's false. And as I'll show you in a minute, the whole Khazar hypothesis is easily refuted along many, many different lines. So the idea that some of the 8th, 9th century, the kingdom of Khazar converted to Judaism, and that's the origin of the Ashkenazi Jews, it's been refuted over and over and over and over, and has nothing to do, actually, with the other genetic studies that Mr. Fortson will reference momentarily. So if you want to watch a short video, it's, 5-10 minutes long. We'll put a link up in the YouTube description channel, but it's just a very, very simple unpacking of this idea that there is this Khazarian origin of Ashkenazi Jews, or that somehow people like me would go back to the kingdom of Khazar. Easily refuted. We'll put a link in the YouTube description where you can unpack this for yourself. Here's what I explained and ran through in my interaction with Guerrilla Hebrew when this myth of the Khazarian conversions, and that explains the Ashkenazi Jews, where that came up. So here's what I said in the debate. Number one, there is historical refutation. At most, some of the Khazarian people, starting with the king, converted to Judaism in the 9th century AD, possibly resulting in a small number of Khazarian Jews in future generations. This is verified by Professor Henry Abramson. But note that just 2 centuries later, the Spanish Jewish rabbi Chasdai ibn Shaprut sent emissaries to inquire if the story was true. That's how little lasting evidence there was of this alleged massive Khazar conversion, let alone the Khazar Jews allegedly being the originators of Ashkenazi Jewry. Let me just pause for a minute and say this. No one is disputing that Israelite men, Jewish men as they scattered around the world, intermarried with Gentile women who converted to Judaism. That's how you have black Jews. That's how you have white Jews. And it's in the Bible. You have Rahab, the prostitute, who becomes an Israelite, and she now factors in royal genealogies ultimately. You have Ruth, the Moabite, an idol-worshiping people. She becomes part of the people of Israel. She converts to the Israelite faith, and she's in the lineage of David and of Jesus the Messiah. So this has happened throughout our history. And in fact, the fact that Guerrilla Hebrew's mother was a white Gentile, to me, did not disqualify him from being an Israelite. According to everything I understand, his DNA says he's not an Israelite, so he's a fake Israelite in that regard. But this is through history. No one's disputing that. No one's arguing it. We've all said it. I've said it for years and years. Geneticists and other scholars have said it for centuries. We understand that's how skin color and all this changes. You travel to different parts of the world. You live there. People from those parts of the world, the women in particular, convert, marry in, and you do that enough, and now you take on the skin color and complexion and outward ethnicity of the cultures where you live. All right, so historical refutation, there's no evidence even in the ancient world of this mass conversion. It should also be pointed out that the Khazar kingdom appears to have been destroyed by 1000 AD, with no mention of Jews in that region after that for 400 years. In the words of Professor Shaul Stampfer, the demographic researcher, quote, "It's a splendid story, and just that, a story, not history. In his view, the story is entirely fabricated or highly exaggerated. So if in fact there were some converts, they eventually became totally lost to history. On a linguistic level, there is absolutely no linguistic connection between the Khazarian people who spoke a Turkic language and Ashkenazi Jews, whose first language, Yiddish, is very close to German. If you go to Israel today, friends, you're German, and you're standing on the street and you listen to your average Israeli speaking Hebrew, you don't have any clue what they're saying. You do not have a clue of anything they're saying because they're speaking Hebrew, a Semitic language. If you went into ultra-Orthodox area where the Jews that were speaking Yiddish, you'd understand a lot of it because it's Germanic, right? It has no connection to any Turkic language. One Israeli scholar who tried to argue for that has been utterly trounced by other top Yiddish scholars in the world. The Yiddish linguist and onomastic expert, so expert in names, Alexander Bider, has stated that, quote, the corpus of personal names and surnames borne by Jews in Eastern Europe during the last 6 centuries, as well as the Yiddish language as a whole, do not contain any link to Khazariya. So there is no historical connection, no linguistic connection. He continues, in the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe over the past 6 centuries, not a single Turkic name can be found in documents listing Jewish names, even in documents from the 15th and 16th centuries dealing with Jews who lived in the territories of modern Ukraine and Belarus have no such names. If you want to invest a couple $100 and get his book on the origins of the Yiddish language, there's a lengthy appendix in the back of it that lays this out. And then, genetically, there is no connection between Ashkenazi Jewish DNA and Turkic equals Khazarian DNA. Here is a major study that was published by Human Biology. Human Biology, you've got all the info right there. You can look it up for yourself. No evidence from genome-wide data of a Khazar origin for the Ashkenazi Jews. Here's a list of the geneticists involved, okay? This is, and each slide has multiple names on it. This was one of the most important genetic studies done in history on Ashkenazi Jews, and it concluded no connection whatsoever to Khazariya. So I could go on with that, but enough said that theory is absolute rubbish, that Jews today, Ashkenazi Jews, can trace their origins back to Khazariya. Absolute rubbish. Not only so, about half the Jews of the world today are not Ashkenazi. Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews. The Mizrahi Jews have lived in that Middle Eastern territory for roughly 4,000 years with an unbroken history there, and speaking the same language. The dialects vary here and there, just like English across America varies a little, but the same language, living there. Where'd they come from? They've always been there. They've always been there. And genetically, we are connected. Mizrahi Jews, Sephardi Jews who were in the Iberian Peninsula of Spain, exiled in 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's when all non-baptized Jews in Spain were kicked out, thrown out of the country. Either if they stayed, they were killed or forced to convert to Catholicism. Otherwise, they had to flee for their lives. Sephardi Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, we all share a common gene pool. Yeah, quite remarkably. Okay, so let's go back now to Mr. Fortson, and we will listen to his next clip.
So we're gonna come over here. So in January 2006, January 21st, 2006, this is from the NCBI or NIH.gov. Let me see here. I just want to make sure I get it's all these. Here it is right here. U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. I just want to make sure I got all these acronyms right, because we're going to keep running across a bunch of acronyms in a bunch of different places. So this is a .gov website, so you know it's from the government. It's not from some random person. Now, here's what it says. Gene tests show that 2/5 of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from 4 women. You come down here. It says 4 founding mothers who lived in Europe 1,000 years ago were the ancestors of 2/5 of all Ashkenazi European origin Jews. This is the conclusion of a team of researchers at the Technion and Israel Institute of Technology, Haifa. After they compared DNA sequences from nearly 2,000 Jews with those of 11,500. Let me see. I don't think that might be a typo on their part. 500 non-Jewish people in 67 different populations around the world.
Right. Exactly. Same studies that we've all looked at. Nothing new there. So roughly 40% of Ashkenazi Jews can be traced back to some key women, European women who converted to Judaism and married in, or had Middle Eastern origins but were living in Europe. Yeah, no surprise there. We fully understand that, again, around the world, explaining why you have Chinese Jews, black Jews, Hispanic Jews, white Jews, because people convert, marry in, and then the ethnicities change over the centuries. We all know that. But I want you to notice, as you scroll down in the article, it mentions Professor Skorecki, one of the key people, Professor Skorecki. It mentions his name. Well, who is this? If you go to the Bar Ilan University website, one of the top schools in Israel, it mentions Dean Professor Carl Skorecki. Professor Carl Skorecki is the dean of Bar Ilan University's Azrieli Faculty of Medicine in Safed, born and raised in Toronto. So here's his whole bio. How did Professor Skorecki become famous? Here's an article on Science Daily from July 14th, 1998, summarizing some major research. Priestly gene shared by widely dispersed Jews. The finding last year of genetic links among Jewish men thought to be descendants of the biblical high priest Aaron was greeted with tremendous interest and clamoring for more information. A team of British and Israeli scientists have now found additional information that links the priestly caste, the Kohanim, which includes men with last names that are variations on Kohen. Who is it that spearheaded this study? Professor Skorecki. He began to wonder, how was it that in the Jewish community around the world that certain people had a history, a tradition of being priests, that they, in their names, in their customs, in their traditions, trace back to Aaron, the high priest? How was this, and was it verifiable? So he began to do these studies, and to his surprise and the amazement of others, and by the way, so priest in Hebrew is Kohen, priest plural Kohanim. So many Jews with the last name Cohen, that's what it goes back to, Kohen, priest. And that's how it was preserved in that name. Many from the tribe of Levi have the last name Levi. So what happened was Professor Skorecki and his team found that there was a common gene that would, on the male side, that would trace back to Aaron, or trace back to a figure at the right time in world history in the Middle East, all traced back to the same figure. And it was commonly held by Sephardi Jews, by Ashkenazi Jews. It was even found among Lemba Jews in Africa. Isn't this remarkable? I'm going to come back to the Lemba towards the end with some fascinating data about these African Jews. But how in the world did we all end up with this same gene, those of priestly descent, unless it all went back to Aaron? If Ashkenazi Jews were converts of the Khazars, which of course complete nonsense, but if that's where it all comes from, that's over here, that's unrelated, right? And if the Lemba Jews, they're the African Jews, they're the real Jews, they're over here, and the Sephardi Jews, they're somewhere else. How is it you trace back 4,000 years to the same genetic pool with an individual of priestly descent in the Middle East? So this is of tremendous consequence, and this is in that very article. All right, so let me just log into this one article here. Let's take a look then at a little bit more in depth in some of these studies. Okay, let's scroll down to this article that Mr. Fortson cited, right, from published in the National Library of Medicine. Gene tests show that 2/5 of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from 4 women. And let's scroll down to the paragraph which says this. The team, which studied mitochondrial DNA, so this is passed on solely by mothers to their children, found evidence of shared maternal ancestry of Ashkenazi and non-Ashkenazi Jews, a finding showing a shared ancestral pool that is consistent with previous studies that were based on the Y chromosome, so the male chromosome. This evidence pointed to a similar pattern of shared paternal ancestry of Jewish populations around the world originating in the Middle East. Exactly what we've been saying, that our origins are in the Middle East through our fathers. They concluded that the 4 founding types of mtDNA, likely to be of Middle Eastern origin, underwent a major overhaul expansion in Europe over the last 1,000 years. So even these European women had Middle Eastern background, but they were living in Europe. Fascinating, isn't it? And as Mr. Fortson notes, as you read through more of this, there's actual refutation of the idea that there's any connection to Khazarian Jews, the alleged converts and things like that. Isn't that interesting? So the article cited confirms exactly the same position that we have taken all these years. By the way, there are 2 major books. Write down the name, Kevin Allen Brooks. Kevin Allen Brooks. One of the books has this name, The Maternal Genetic Lineages of Ashkenazi Jews. Just came out in 2022. If you want to dig into this, if you want to study this in depth, The Maternal Genetic Lineages of Ashkenazi Jews. Ashkenazi Jews came out October 25th, 2022. If you want to get in depth and really study this. The other book that he wrote was on the Jews of Khazariya. Find out the truth about this whole story, Jews who live there in Khazar, the alleged conversion of the Khazars. So this came out 2018, Kevin Allen Brooks, The Jews of Khazariya. So if you want to study, here's some sources where you can get into greater depth. They will confirm everything I have said thus far. So far this study actually doesn't say anything contrary to what we've always said, that we go back to the original tribes of Israel as Ashkenazi Jews, Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Black Jews. We go back to the original tribes of Israel, but through scattering and intermarriage, especially women converting to Judaism and then intermarrying, we take on different skin color and background. So when we talk about the suffering of the Jews in history, it's the suffering of Sephardi Jews who were kicked out of Spain. It's the suffering of Ashkenazi Jews who were slaughtered in Europe. It's the suffering of black Jews who were discriminated against within Africa. That's all part of our common heritage that we Jews have. All right, so let us get back then to the presentation and listen to more of what Mr. Fortson has to say.
That's interesting because Kessler is telling you that these people weren't Semitic. And so now, that was in 1976. So we fast forward 30 years later to 2006. It's proven that they weren't genetically Semitic.
So first thing, it's nothing to do with Kessler. Kessler's theory was an entirely separate theory, separate from the one about the origin of Ashkenazi Jews with these 2/5 coming from 4 European mothers. But the studies do confirm our Semitic descent, 100%, through the men. They actually confirm that, point in that direction, and the priestly gene, common among Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and other Jews, confirms that as well. The intermarriage through other women, that has been part of our history from the beginning, right in the Bible. That has happened through history. Women converting, marrying in. It has happened through history. It continues to this very day. All right, back to Mr. Fortson.
TheScientist.com. Genetic roots of Ashkenazi Jews. This is from, hold on, let me make sure I'm not skipping. Okay, so this is from October 8th, 2013. So this is 7 years later after the source I just read. So Arthur Kessler started, and then 30 years later, I just read a source that says they are European. And then now I'm going 7 years after that to 2013, October 8, 2013. Most Ashkenazi Jews traditionally believe to have descended from the ancient tribes of Israel may in fact be maternally descended from prehistoric Europeans. This is not Israelites saying this. This is not Dante making this claim. And yet they say it's racist when we say it, and the scientific community is saying it.
All right, so I'm going to come back to the racist issue in a moment. I didn't hear anything racist in Mr. Fortson's words. I didn't hear anything race baiting in his words. Sir, if you do happen to watch this video, I appreciate the way you're presenting things. And it seems to me that you're honestly looking at the evidence and trying to understand it and putting the sources up for everyone, right? And not cherry picking. So I appreciate you doing that. You know, it's interesting when I sent Guerrilla Hebrew's arguments to geneticists and historians to look at, especially one he said highly respected, he should be listened to. One said to me his position is intellectual sewage. Those are the words they use, intellectual sewage. Another geneticist said, yeah, his positions were completely wrong. My rebuttals were completely accurate. Because I'm not a geneticist, neither is Mr. Fortson, neither is Guerrilla Hebrew, et cetera. So I said, hey, it's crystal clear to me, but I'm going to send it to scholars, experts in the field, especially the ones that they're citing as reliable people. And these very people are saying, yeah, what Guerrilla Hebrew is saying was, quote, intellectual sewage. All right, so Mr. Fortson, he's presenting things, going through the evidence more clearly, but the issue is not whether we are Semitic or not. We are. Those are our origins. The issue is there also a European contribution through women who converted to Judaism? Yes, of course. We've always known that. That's not disputed. I'm not disputing that for a split second. So let's look at this actual study. All right, and you can get a free account on this website to log in and read it for yourself. The majority of Ashkenazi Jews are descended from prehistoric European women, according to a study published today in Nature Communications. While the Jewish religion began in the Near East and the Ashkenazi Jews were believed to have origins in the early indigenous tribes of this region, new evidence from mitochondrial DNA, so the mother, which is passed down exclusively from mother to child, suggests that female ancestors of most modern Ashkenazi Jews converted to Judaism in the North Mediterranean around 2,000 years ago and later in West and Central Europe. 2,000 years ago, what happened? So, as Jerusalem was conquered and destroyed in the year 70, there were tens of thousands of Jews, well, hundreds of thousands killed, but multiplied tens of thousands who were sent off as slaves, some in ships to Egypt, according to ancient historians. And we know that many as 100,000, close to 96,000, were sent as slaves to Rome. Study Josephus and other historians looking back at that time. So what happened was we were sent as slaves to Rome, and then over time gained our freedom as Jews there, So Middle Eastern Jews now began living in these communities, interacting more with that community. Women now, Italian women in Rome, converting to Judaism, marrying in. So little by little, we begin to take on that skin color and complexion. And then as we move into Europe, Germany and these other places, now there's even more intermarriages, people are converting in, hence we become white Jews. Again, it's that simple. Just like these same Middle Eastern Jews exiled to Africa, scattering there after Babylonian captivity and other places and times, intermarry more and more with the African population, you end up with black Jews. It's just how it happened. The skin color is very much secondary. So look at this. The new findings contradict previous assertions that Ashkenazi mitochondrial lineages originated in the Near East or from mass conversions to Judaism in the Khazar kingdom, an empire in the North Caucasus region between Europe and Asia lasting from the 7th century to the 11th century, whose leaders adopted Judaism. So it's saying the whole Khazar hypothesis, the Khazarian hypothesis is wrong. It's refuting that as well. And then, quote, we found that most of the maternal lineages don't trace to the North Caucasus, which would be a proxy of the Khazarians, or to the Near East, but most of them emanate from Europe. Let's keep going down. The Ashkenazi Jews make up the majority of Jews today and most recently have ancestry in Central and Eastern Europe. Previous work has demonstrated that just 4 mitochondrial types passed down from the foremothers account for 40% of variation in Ashkenazi Jews' mitochondrial DNA, so all through the mother, through the mother, through the mother. To further investigate the matrilineal lines of the Ashkenazi Jews, Richards and colleagues looked at mitochondrial genome sequences in living Jews and non-Jews from the Near East, Europe, and the Caucasus. Based on the results, the team concluded that in contrast to the evidence for many Ashkenazi males whose Y chromosomal DNA suggests a likely origin in the Near East, the female lineage of Ashkenazi Jews has substantial ancestry in Europe. Did you get that? The researchers recognize that when you trace the male lines of Ashkenazi Jews backwards, you find that they have a Middle Eastern, Near Eastern origin going back where? To ancient Israel, hence our history, hence our traditions, hence the fact that we have been hated around the world as Jews for centuries. Look, Ethiopian Jews living in Africa were persecuted by fellow Africans because they were Jews. Ashkenazi Jews living in Europe were persecuted by the surrounding communities because they were Jews. Mizrahi Jews living in the Middle East and Arab countries and Muslim countries over the centuries were persecuted as Jews. This is part of our lived heritage. You have to understand, through most of Jewish history, it's not been a popular thing to identify as a Jew because you're hated for it. You're maligned for it. You're persecuted for it. You're rejected for it. You may be killed for it. You're forced to convert or die or be exiled. This is part of our history. Just like in Nazi Germany, people were not lining up on the road saying, hey, I'm a Jew. No, many were trying to hide their identity because they had been so assimilated. They were more German than Jewish, but they still died because it was in their blood. It was who they were. So I mentioned the Lemba Jews, and I was going to come back to them. I'm going to come back to them right now. Here is a fascinating article. And check this out for yourself. It is on the Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa. Got that? The Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa. Not some white source, not some contemporary Jewish source in the West. This is within Africa, the Ubuntu National Institute of South Africa, a study from June 2nd, 2020, Culture, Lemba, Bantu people of Southern Africa, the lost Jewish tribe. And here's a picture of these Lemba men in their Jewish garb. Okay, I want to scroll down to a few paragraphs here, and I want to read this to you. This is from the Ubuntu website. According to the Lemba oral tradition, their male ancestors migrated to Southeast Africa in order to obtain gold. After ancestors, notice these words, intermarried with local women and became established in Africa. At some point, the tribe split into two groups, one staying in Ethiopia and the other traveling farther south along the east coast. So just like Ashkenazi Jews in Europe intermarried with local women, who married in, who converted into Judaism. The exact same thing happened with the Lemba people. So people from one of the scattered tribes, Israelites, some of them priests, priestly heritage among them, they get into different parts of Africa. Women convert, join in, and now they become African in ethnicity and skin color. That's how it happened. But the women intermarrying with Ashkenazi Jews, which seems to be a major thing for Mr. Fortson, this is what's happened around the world. Here, one more paragraph from the study. Members of the priestly clan of the Lemba, the Buba, which is one of 12 tribes, have a genetic element also found among the Jewish priestly line known as Kohanim. This was amazing, Professor Tudor Parfit from the University of London told the BBC. It looks as if the Jewish priesthood continued in the West by people called Kohen, and in the same way it was continued by the priestly clan of the Lemba. In other words, the same bloodline in these African Jews, in their priestly clan among them, is the same bloodline among Ashkenazi Jews with the last name Cohen, that it also traced back to the priestly line. It connects us. It doesn't separate us. All right, I want to go back to Mr. Fortson and then give a closing response.
We're not the only people saying that something isn't right. All right, so now Kessler said, hey, these people aren't who they claim to be. And then 30 years later, DNA says, hey, these people aren't who they claim to be. And then we keep reading that, okay, these people are European. And remember, go back to the Christian doctrine that we received.
All right, so number one, Kessler has zero to do with the other genetic studies. Zero. The other genetic studies refute Kessler. So throw that out. These genetic studies are not saying things are not what they appear to be. They're not saying, they are confirming through the Father the Middle Eastern ancient Israelite identity of Ashkenazi Jews and emphasizing the role of intermarriage with European women who converted into Judaism. Yes, correct, exactly. Hence our white European look. Exactly. This is not rocket science. It's not saying it's not what it really seemed to be. There have been women converting into Judaism and marrying in, going back to Ruth, going back to Rahab, and the same with these Lemba women that married in there. It's exact same process. Nothing new, nothing illegitimate, nothing saying we're not who we claim to be. No, we're exactly who we claim to be. Okay, one more clip.
Now we're supposed to believe that these people who are called Ashkenaz in the Bible, linked to Japheth in the Bible, called Gentiles in the Bible said that Gentiles would be in Jerusalem, occupy Jerusalem, or Jerusalem would be trodden down by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles were fulfilled. We see these people there. We see these people calling themselves by the names of Japheth's descendants, and yet we're not supposed to believe what's happening in front of our face. We're not supposed to believe what we're reading in the book about these people. This is what they tell us. And if we don't believe it, we're making it about race and we're anti-Semitic. The reason they come up with these terms anti-Semitic and why they work to our advantage in some ways, the reason they come up with these terms is so you're not allowed to question them. Why is there one specific group of people on the planet you're not allowed to question about their claims and origin as to who they are? You can't ask them for evidence. You can't challenge the claims. Otherwise, you're branded as anti-Semitic.
All right, so I'm not branding Mr. Fortson as anti-Semitic. I'm not branding him as that. Never made those comments. I will say the Sicarii and other Hebrew Israelites I've dealt with are blatantly anti-Semitic. But let's clarify this. Number one, there is no connection between Ashkenaz, descendant of Japhet in Genesis 10, as we showed right at the beginning, and Ashkenazi Jews today. It was just a name that was taken because of Gomer, which was associated with Germany, but there is no connection historically, genetically, whatsoever. Ashkenazi Jews, descendants of ancient Israel, along with Sephardi Jews, Mizrahi Jews, Black Jews, and others. And the Ashkenaz in the Bible, the Scythians who disappeared from history a couple thousand plus years ago. That's number one. Number two, no one's saying you can't question, dig, open up all the sources. What do you think all these genetic studies are doing? What do you think these Israeli scholars and Jewish scholars are doing? They're looking, they're searching. By all means, ask questions, dig. Let's do it together. That's fine. But here's where I want to raise a very, very strong and clear word of protest. I'm not angry if a Hebrew Israelite wrongly claims that they are of Jewish background. Maybe a handful are, a minority are, right? But if they were only, I'm not angry with them. I'm not calling them synagogue of Satan. I'm not blaming them. I'm not. However, the level of hatred unleashed towards us as legitimate Jews, being called fake Jews and everything else, is extraordinary. And the calls to wipe us out, so that Esau's going to be put down and you just watch what's happening and your time is over and you're about to be enslaved. It's ugly. Where's it coming from? You know a tree by its fruit. So we get these by the hour online. All right? And I'm sure the ones I don't see are probably by the second online. You tell me where this comes from if there's not a lot of anti-Semitism behind it. Here's just an example of recent posts on our YouTube channel. Dr. Brown, you're a DM, Edomite, and captivity is your portion along with your people, damn synagogue of Satan. Or Esau, you're finished. You didn't correct or confront anybody. You are Edomite and your time is up. And all these black people that's under here cheering you on and cheering their enemy on will pay too. These Edomites are finished. And this man is of the devil. White man can't be a Jew. And the Jewish man is the chief house of Satan. And this is how a slithering snake works. He'll say something slick out of his mouth, and then when an official ancestor of Hebrew descent starts calling in, suddenly he has to slither out to see the true Hebrews didn't have to learn this because it's in our DNA. Those scriptures are our history books. But you can keep lying all you want to, Brown, but you know you are exposed. If you don't repent, you're going to be held accountable by the Most High to your lies and deception. You're a little too old to keep playing with the Word of God. You can't stop this reawakening of the true children of Israel. The Most High will move you out of the way. You have been warned. Dr. Brown, concerning your answer to why Hitler persecuted you people was because he knew that they were imposing the Jew identity. This is why he persecuted them, stealing the identity of the Israelites. You know it. Can't wait to wipe your AZZ off your piece of blank. Earth has enough of you pale-skinned terror artists. We get this day and night, this ugly, ugly trash. I'm not mad at these people. I pity them. I pity their lostness. I pity their anger. I pity their hatred. But, Mr. Fortson, you have to understand this is out there. An animosity towards my Jewish people. And why are we sensitive? Because we have suffered wholesale slaughter. Just like you are rightly sensitive to the whitewashing of American history that downplays the ugliness of the slave trade or that ignores the horrors of the Middle Passage and the kidnapping of a people and the robbing of their identity and history, just like anything in our history books that whitewashes that or downplays the significance you'd be sensitive to, well, the same way with our people being slaughtered, with 3 million out of 3.3 million Jews in Poland being wiped out in the Holocaust, with 1.5 million Jewish babies and children being slaughtered in cold blood, with 2 out of 3 of all European Jews being wiped out in cold blood. And to this day, both white supremacists and black supremacists hate the same people in America. That's right, we Jews. There is sensitivity there. So by all means, investigate, study, understand, but do so in a way that produces love. I have an increased love for those who identify as Hebrew Israelite, which I understand is a big camp. I have an increased love for the Sakari. I pray for them. I'm on my knees saying, God, how can I reach these people with the news of liberation and salvation and transformation through Yeshua? And as a Jew by blood as well, I welcome black Jews. I welcome African Jews. And where you've been slighted by the Jewish community in America, hey, as a Jewish follower of Jesus, I get rejected too. I'm not mad at you. And those who have falsely claimed to be Israelites, I'm not mad at you. Don't be mad at you, even if you think I'm mistaken. The fact there's this anger, there's this hatred, the fact that in response to teachings like this, it often opens a Pandora's box of ugly, false accusations, that should be a cause for reflection. That being said, Mr. Fortson, if you do happen to watch this video, it's not an attack on you. I hope you say I've been respectful throughout. I'd be happy to dialogue privately or publicly, or if you thought it would be constructive. This is not a challenge. If you thought it would be constructive to have a look at the scriptures and to see, do the scriptures teach that the Israelites were originally black? If you'd like to do that and think it would be constructive, a formal public debate, I'd be happy to. If you want to talk privately, great. If it's not worth your time, may God bless you. You're not mad at me. And if you have Jewish blood, you're a Jewish brother. If you know Jesus, Yeshua, as Savior, you're a brother in the way that matters the most.